Welcome. Marhaba, do you hear me? Welcome, marhaba, shalom. My name is Eli Avidor, and I'm a member of Combatants for Peace. I want to thank you for joining us in this 15th Israeli-Palestinian Memorial Day ceremony. I also want to thank Rami Elhanan for hosting this evening and sharing his story with us. Before we start, just a few technical details. We have put all of the participants on mute, and it won't be possible to open your mic during the meeting. We encourage you, though, to ask questions using the chat option directed to me, Eli. I'll pass them on to Rami in the second half of the meeting. Rami's 14-year-old daughter, Smadar, was killed in a suicide bombing in Jerusalem in September 1997. He understood that revenge and violence could not solve the conflict, nor bring back Smadar. Rami has devoted his life to breaking down the wall of fear and hatred that divide Israelis and Palestinians, and has said, with the power of our pain, we will destroy this wall. Today, Rami serves as a CEO and of the Israeli-Palestinian Parent Circle to promote peace and reconciliation with Bassam Aramin. Together, they devote their lives to meeting with Israelis and Palestinians, students and adults, with the goal of promoting tolerance, attentiveness, and a better future for both peoples. Inspired by Rami and Bassam's stories, the author Colum McCann wrote a novel entitled A Paragon, which means a polygon with a countably infinite number of sides. The book was published this year and has become an immediate bestseller in the United States, to the point that Steven Spielberg has just bought the rights to adapt the novel to the screen. So here we are, Rami, looking forward to hearing your story. Eli.
Rami, you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Heli. Thanks, everybody from the Parent Circle and the Combatants for Peace. It's a pleasure being here tonight after the most amazing, unprecedented ceremony that we ever had. We're doing it for the last 15 years. And now sitting home, watching this extraordinary ceremony, which show the humanity of human beings above everything, is a real sense of achievement. And I thank everyone who did anything to promote this and make it happen from the bottom of my heart. Usually, I would have my my terrorist partner, my brother Bassam, beside me. Usually, we are speaking together. Usually, I say that he's the closest person to me on earth, much closer to me than many of my own people and many of my own family. And what makes us so close is the price that we both have paid as an outcome of this ongoing conflict between our two nations. We don't need words to understand each other. Bassam, for me, is a leader, a light in the dark. I look up to him and admire him. And I take a lot of strength out of him and my other brothers and sisters, Israelis and Palestinians, members of this unique organization of ours, the Parent Circle, which is probably the only organization on earth that does not seek new members. My name is Rami Elhanan. I'm a 70 years old graphic designer living in Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem, 7th generation. My mother was born in the old city of Jerusalem, an ultra-Orthodox Jewish family. My father came to this country in 1946 after spending 1 year in Auschwitz. He was very badly wounded in the 48 war. She was the nurse that took care of him And this is the reason why I'm able to speak to you right now. I am a Jew, I'm an Israeli, and before anything else, I am a human being. The story I will tell you this evening starts and also ends on one particular day of the Jewish calendar, which is known by the name of Yom Kippur. You know, Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year for the Jewish people. This day where we ask forgiveness for our sins. On this very day, almost 47 years ago, I was a very young soldier fighting this horrible October 73 war. We have started it with a company of 11 tanks. We finished it with only 3. I've lost over there in the desert of Sinai and across the Suez Canal some of my very close friends. I came out of it a very angry and bitter and disappointed young man with one determination: to detach myself from any kind of commitment, from any kind of involvement. I got out of the army. I went to Bezalel Art School to become a graphic designer. I got married and I had 4 kids. And almost 37 years ago, on the very eve of Yom Kippur, September 1983, my daughter was born in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Her name was Smadar. The name Smadar is taken from the Bible, the Song of Solomon. It means the grape of vine, which means the opening of the flower. And she really was a very sparkling and vivid and joyful little girl. She was an excellent student. She was a swimmer. She was a dancer. She was amazing. Everybody used to call her the princess. And we lived a very good life in our house in Jerusalem. My wife, which is the professor for education in the Hebrew University, my 3 boys, and this princess in what seemed to be the perfect and sheltered and protected lives. In so many ways, you could say that we put ourselves inside a big bubble, completely detached from the outside world, minding our own business. I was doing graphic design for the right wing, for the left wing, whoever paid me, and life was relatively beautiful. And this went on until about almost 23 years ago. On the 4th of September, 1997, this bubble of ours was blown up to millions of pieces. 2 Palestinian suicide bombers blew themselves up in Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem. They've killed 5 people that day, including 3 little girls. One of these girls was my 14 years old Smadar. It was Thursday afternoon and the beginning of a very long and a very cold night, which continues until today. At first, when you hear about the explosion, you keep hoping that maybe this time this finger will not turn towards you. Then gradually you find yourself running in the streets trying to find her. She completely disappeared. You go from hospital to hospital, from police station to police station, many long and frustrating hours until eventually very, very later that night, you find yourself in the morgue. This finger is stuck right between your eyes. And you see this sight which you will never, ever be able to forget for the rest of your life. And then you come back home. The house is filled with thousands and thousands of people coming to pay respect, to offer condolences. These are the 7 days of the Jewish mourning period. It's called Shiv'ah, and you are kind of enveloped by these thousands of people in a very clever, traditional way that is designed to ease your passage to the new kind of life which expects you. On the 8th day, they go back home. Everyone goes back to their normal everyday businesses. Suddenly you are left alone. You need to wake up. You need to stand up and face yourself, and you have to make a decision. What are you going to do now with this new unbearable burden on your shoulders? What are you going to do with this new personality of yourself? What are you going to do with this anger that eats you alive from within? There are only 2 options, 2 ways to choose from. And the first one is obvious. When someone kills your 14 years old little girl, you are so angry and you want to get even. This is natural. This is human. This is the way most people choose, the way of revenge and retaliation, this way that creates this endless cycle of violence which never stops. But then after a while, you start to think, you know, we are human beings, we are not animals, we can use our heads, and you start asking yourself, will killing anyone will bring her back? Will causing pain to someone will ease this unbearable pain? Well, the answer is certainly not. So in a very graduate and complicated process, you come to the other option, which is much more difficult, trying to understand what happened here. Why did it happen? How could such a horrible thing take place? What can cause someone to be that angry, that desperate, that mad, that hopeless, that he is willing to blow himself up with 14 years old little girl? Do you have some kind of connection or responsibility yourself? And then the most important question of them all, what can you do personally in order to prevent this unbearable pain from other people, from other families? Well, it's not easy, it takes time. It took me more than a year. Foolishly enough, at the beginning, I thought that I could go back to my work, pretending as if nothing had happened, to live a normal life. But nothing was normal anymore. I wasn't the same person anymore. And about a year later, I met a big man who changed my life completely. His name was Yitzhak Frankenthal. He was a religious Jewish guy, you know, with a big kippah on his head. And you know how we tend to put people into drawers, and we stigmatize people and we judge people by the way they dress and the way they look. And I was certain that this guy, Yitzhak Frankenthal, was a fascist and a right-winger, that he eats Arabs for breakfast. I prepared myself to fight him. We started talking. He told me about his son, Arik, a soldier who was kidnapped and murdered by Hamas in 1994. And about this organization that he created of people who lost their loved ones and still wanted peace and search for peace, Israelis and Palestinians together. And I remember then that this guy, Yitzhak Frankenthal, was one of these thousands and thousands of people that came to my house a year before during the 7 days of mourning, and I went crazy. I was so angry with him. I asked him, how could you do it? How could you step into someone's house who just lost a loved one, his daughter, and talk about peace? How dare you? And he, being the great guy that he is, was not insulted. He just invited me over to watch a meeting of this group of crazy people. And I got a little bit curious. I said, okay. And I went to see. It was 22 years ago. I was standing aside, very detached and reluctant and cynical, as I always am. And I was watching people coming down from buses. For me, as an Israeli patriot, this sight was amazing. I saw the Israeli bereaved families coming down from the buses, walking towards me. And I was so amazed. People, I used to read about them in the newspapers. I used to look up to them. I used to adore them. And I never ever thought that one day I will become one of them. But then I saw something else. I was standing there watching the Palestinian bereaved families, walking towards me, shaking my hand for peace, hugging me, crying with me. It was like a hammer on my head. I was absolutely overwhelmed, shocked. You see, I was 47 years old at the time. And until today, I'm ashamed to admit, it was the first time ever in my life I have met Palestinians as human beings. Not as workers in the streets, not as terrorists, and not as transparent people, as human beings who carry the same burden that I carry, who suffer exactly like I suffer. And I was so deeply moved. I remember seeing this old Arab lady coming down from the bus with this long black traditional Palestinian dress, and she had a picture of a 6-year-old kid on her chest, exactly like my wife carrying the name of our daughter on hers. I'm not a religious person. I have no way of explaining what happened to me back then, 22 years ago. All I can tell you is that from that moment on until today, I devote my life to go everywhere possible, to talk to anyone possible, people who want to listen and people who will not listen, to convey this very basic and very simple message, which says we are not doomed. This is not our destiny to keep on killing each other forever in this holy land of ours. It's not written anywhere. We can change it, and we can break once and for all this endless cycle of violence and revenge and retaliation. And the only way to do it is simply by talking to each other, because it will not stop unless we talk. This is what we do in the parent circle. We bang our heads against this very high wall of hatred and fear that divide our two nations today, and we put cracks in it, crack after crack after crack. And through these little cracks, a little light comes in, and a little light can drive away a lot of darkness until we will put those walls down, because the alternative is too horrible. And we have an enormous ally on our side, which is the power of our pain. You should know that the power of pain is really tremendous. It's very much similar to the nuclear energy. And like this horrible energy, you can use it in order to bring light, darkness, and destruction, and pain and death to people. And you can bring light and hope and warmth. So we go around the country. We go from high school to high school. We go from youth club to youth club. We go from dialogue meeting to dialogue meeting. We speak to thousands and thousands of people. And we tell them that our blood is exactly the same color, that our pain is exactly the same pain, and our tears are just as bitter. And if we who have every reason on earth to hate each other, if we who have every reason on earth to want to kill each other, if we can call each other brother, anyone can, anyone should. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Rami, thank you so much for this moving story. I'll start with the question, are you hopeful? With what you see around you and hear people hearing your story, are you hopeful?
I'm extremely hopeful, and we have to be able to look at things from the short run and the long run. From the short run, we are in deep shit. It's not only us, all around the world. Look at Trump, look at Hungary, look at Poland, look at England, look everywhere. The right wing is winning, but I'm certain that it's temporary and it will change, because once people will understand that coronavirus did not happen just like this, and the health systems around the world did not cross down just like this. It has a method behind it. Then people will wake up and understand what is right, what should be done. And in the long run, I have no doubt that once the price of not having peace will exceed the price of peace, the two sides will crawl back to the negotiating to start again where they left off 20 years ago in Camp David. And I will finish with Bassam famous example. The Israelis did not kill 6 million Palestinians yet. And the Palestinians did not kill 6 million Israelis. And there is a German ambassador in Tel Aviv and an Israeli ambassador in Berlin.
Here we have a question for Celia Kalo. She's asking, first she's thanking you, of course, so inspiring. And she's asking, what can I do? How can we help?
Well, I humbly ask permission to answer this question as the last question, because you can do a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I should leave lots of time for that. Okay. So I'll ask you this. The sharing of Israeli and Palestinian grief is a powerful message. Are there moments, situations, when the collaboration is too difficult? Can you describe the dynamics within the group at such moments?
There are ups and downs. We are swimming against the current, against our own societies, sometimes against our own families. If you like, we are drawing water from the ocean with a little spoon full of little holes. But I think what brings us together is the word respect. We respect each other. We know that each and every one of us paid the highest price possible. We are not there to hug each other and kiss each other and eat hummus together. We are there for a political purpose. The occupation took away our children. This situation in which one people is dominating another must change. It will change. So this is our common denominator, and it gives us a lot of strength. And the respect that we have for one another because of this reason give us the strength to go on.
What do you say to those Israelis? First, I want to ask people to take the chance and send questions. This will send it to the chat, of course. What role do you see for the religious people? Can you describe that?
Extremely important, because the worst thing that can happen is for this conflict to become religious. The minute today the conflict is about water, is about land, is about rights, is about history. It's not about religion. The moment the conflict will become religious, then we are doomed, because you cannot ask a Jew to keep only half the Shabbat, and you cannot ask a Muslim to keep only half Ramadan. Religions do not compromise, but religion, which, and this is a big truth that I learned from my brother Bassam, are between people and God. And it is designed to manage the relationship between human beings. And I think in that sense, religion have a vital part in understanding that we are all human beings and we need to live here together. Because if we will not learn how to live here together, if we will not learn how to share this land between us, then we will have to share the graveyards under it.
Okay, we asked, do you consider the political solution of one state or two states?
We are not a political organization. We are not a political organization in the sense that we are not drawing lines on maps, and we are not phrasing articles of peace agreements. This is for the politicians to deal with. We believe that Oslo agreement failed so dramatically is because it was done between politicians and imposed from above to the people. And we are a grassroots movement, and we start from below by speaking to the people. And this is essential. Now, the ultimate solution, I'm afraid to say the final solution, I would say this, and this is my personal opinion, of course, not the policy of the parent circle. A state is not something sacred. A state is not something to kill for or die for. A state is a tool, a technical tool. You pay your taxes, you get security, you get roads, you get everything you need to get. You don't kill for it and you don't die for it. This was true for the First World War, not ever again. We need to redefine what do we need. We need to redefine the reasons that we are willing to kill for. And as far as I'm concerned, we can have one state or two states or three states or 10,000 states. We can have federation, we can have confederation, we can have so many solutions. It's a technical issue. One word is essential. Without it, nothing will happen. And this word is respect. And you have to be able to respect the guy next to you exactly as you want to be respected, no more and no less. And once you achieve this, all the rest are technicalities that can be solved.
You're being asked, how do you respond to the accusation of normalization?
We are living in an abnormal situation. Two societies. You know, when we step into a high school class, they are not as polite and receptive as you are. It's like walking into the open mouth of an active volcano. The earth is shaking. The very sight of an Israeli and a Palestinian together, which are calling each other brother, is an earthquake. And this earthquake creates the crack in the wall that we are looking for, and a little question mark and a little doubt. So we, as I said earlier, we are swimming against the current, against two societies who are extremely emotional, vulnerable, a sea of blood between these two nations, and we need to make a bridge over it. And we use our stories, our pain, our tragedies to build this, this bridge. Now, no one can blame Bassam Aramin of doing normalization. Bassam Aramin was a hero of the Palestinian people. He spent 7 years in Israeli jail, and he lost his 10-year-old daughter. The same for me. No one can accuse me of being a traitor. I participated in 3 Israeli wars. I lost my daughter. I am a part of this country. But I believe that this country is not mine alone. I have to be able to share it. And, you know, the atmosphere in Israel and in Palestine especially because of the Trump deal of the century and the Trump administration decisions to cut the US aid, to close the Palestinian representative in Washington and deny help for the UNRWA. There is a lot of anger in the Palestinian side. And ever since Oslo until today, what Palestinians see is Israelis and Palestinians meeting each other, kissing each other, eating hummus together. And on the ground, the number of settlements more than doubled, and the occupation became worse and worse and worse. So it's not for me to judge them by using the term normalization. But if they avoid inviting people like my wife, Professor Nurit Peled Elhanan, or Amira Hess, or other Israelis, to participate in their struggle for freedom, for human rights, for equal rights, then they are making a big mistake. They say in Arabic, Id wahade ma bitsakef, which means you cannot clap your hands with one hand. You need 2 hands. You need to find partners. You need to create coalitions. And the same is in the Israeli side. You know, some parents create demonstrations against us in high schools, blaming us for bringing terrorists to their classes of their children. As I said, this is the wall that we have to cross. This is the atmosphere that we have. Even this ceremony of tonight, there is a huge controversy about this. The Palestinians says, what, are you going to remember the people who killed us in the buses? And the Israeli said, what, are you going to remember those soldiers? Contrary. And we say, no, we remember the victims. We are all victims of this situation in which one people is dominating the other.
Rami, this is not a question, just to let you know that your kids are watching it and are so proud of you. Okay.
I'm proud of them. I'm very proud of them. I have grandchildren that speaks fluent Arabic. They go to the bilingual school. I'm so extremely powerful of my 3 boys. My older boy was one of the founders of Combatants for Peace. This is how I met Bassam Aramin, and I will thank him for it for the rest of my life. The father of my grandchildren is a theater director, amazing Arabic, and I have no enough words to describe his vision. And my younger son, if you Google him, Yigal Elhanan, you'll see that 2 years ago, Yigal Elhanan and Arab Aramin were the main speakers in 2 years ago memorial ceremony. And if you'll hear their speech, you will understand everything, why I am so proud of them. And above
I remember
all, our wives, Salwa and Nurit, which support us, which allow it to happen. And I'm extremely grateful.
I remember your son talking and the speech, and we were just standing and crying for like an hour and a half. It was just unreal.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Is there room in a future reconciliation for the concept of a Jewish state?
Wow, this is heavy. Again, this is personal. This is my own private opinion. I think the only country around the world, around the globe, that defines itself by its religion is the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm a proud member of the Jewish people. This is part of my heritage. This is part of my tradition. I am very proud to be part of this tradition. But if this tradition forced me to humiliate my brother Bassam, I prefer to be Jew at home and not create this bit of injustice. And I think we need to be able to live here together. As I said, we need to respect each other. We need to respect the fact that Bassam is a devoted Muslim. He prays 5 times a day. I have to be able to respect it. He has to respect my religion boundaries. The moment you are able to show sensitivity to the needs of the other, everything is possible.
Rami, you have committed to sharing this message by telling your story in communities all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about why you think this message is so important, and has this process of telling and retelling the story has changed you?
It definitely changed me. I was an outcome of the Israeli upbringing. As I said, until the age of 47, I never met Palestinians. I was starting a journey 23 years ago towards not only the other side, the culture, the food, the music, the literature, everything that was deliberately and viciously hidden from me for 47 years before I started it. And I'm still in the midst of this journey, and my discoveries are amazing. And it opens worlds, it opens stories, it opens histories, it opens future. And this is the only way forward. Because without our ability to respect each other, to respect each other culture, each other narrative, each other music, then we are dull, we are gray, we have nothing to look for.
What do you say to the Israelis that think that sharing the enemy, grief with the enemy, crosses a line that they're not ready to cross, violates the culture? Like today, why do it this Memorial Day today, for instance?
Well, the basic reason that we do it today is that if we would done it in every other day, no one would pay attention. And the reason to do it in this very day, because this is the day where we remember our dead. And no one can tell us how to remember our dead. The way they can take them to the army, the way they can expose them to the dangers of terror gives us the right to remember them the way we see fit. I think we are facing two basic elements that are huge, that are gigantic. And both of them are things to be considered and not to be dismissed, and not to be, not to make jokes about. The first one is the fear. Is the fear, is the anger, is the outcome of this years and years and years of war between us. And it's understandable that people will be afraid and angry. But we are the 10th most strongest army in the world. We are a nuclear power. we are finding a bunch of kids throwing stones. This is not real enemy. We did not fight a war for the last 30 years, a real war between tanks, between airplanes. We are, but yet we have enemies. And have you ever seen the Jungle Book movie? If you remember the bear holding the tiger by its tail, and the eagle tells him, let go. And said, oh, well, are you crazy? There are teeth in the other end. We have nothing to be afraid of. We are really, really very strong. But the most important thing is to fight the victimhood mentality. And the victimhood mentality, I think it's the main obstacle, not only for us, also for Palestinians. But I'm speaking as a Jew, and I was born a Jew, and I carry on my back 3,000 years of victimhood. It's a real victimhood. It's not invented. I have it under my skin, the fear. And we are the only ones who are allowed to be victim. No one else is allowed to be victim. We send our kids to Auschwitz when they are 16 years old. And when they come back draped with the national flag and the slogan, never again. And the next year, these 18 years old kids find himself standing in a checkpoint. And he has to make a decision whether this 70 years old guy coming towards him is a time bomb or just a grandfather. This is inhuman. And we cannot go on like this. We have to change it. And I say to the students in which I speak to, that it's a matter of decision. I will not use my victimhood to victimize others, period. And this is the answer.
Rami, Gary is asking, do you feel that over the years that you have been passing on this message, that more people have started believing for your approach?
My dearest Gary, my loved one. Yes, when I met Gary was 22 years ago. We had a travel to the north. He called Dana. He said, Dana, I'm under fire. But I went a long way from there. Then I was at the beginning of the road. I cannot even try to describe in words what happened to me for the last 20 years. The way that I found my way as a member of this parent circle and found a purpose to my life. This organization gave me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And the feeling of standing in front of a youth class, Israeli or Palestinian high schools, and look at their faces. Even if in the end of the class, there will be only one kid nodding his head with acceptance to this message, it's a miracle. We saved one drop of blood. In Judaism, one drop of blood is the whole world. And in fact, the reaction that we get is amazing. I have no doubt that we are making a difference because no one can listen to us and remain the same.
I must say that I really share your feeling. For us, the members of Combatants for Peace, one of us said that apart from their family, her family, that's the thing that she loves the most to do. So that's really gives a purpose, and mainly with the hard situation around, gives you hope through doing something. I want to say that lots of people here are sending thanks and for the amazing presentation, and they've seen you and met you in different places. So it's not a summary, it's not a summary. But you know, it's not questions, so I'm not reporting on those. But I wanted to ask you, you worked with Bassam about on the book. Can you tell us a little about the process working on the story, on the Rambam book?
Well, you know, we talk a lot to the media. We talk a lot to, there were a lot of movies that were done about us. It was kind of routine that people are interesting. We are not an ordinary couple. We are interesting. We should hate each other, yet we love each other. So when Kala Makan said in our lecture in Bejala 5 years ago, his reaction was outstanding. People are crying sometimes when we speak, but he cracked, he collapsed. He was in such an emotional situation that we had to comfort him. And we became very, very good friends. And then he asked permission to write about us. And we said, why not? Like dozens of others. And it became something which was really unprecedented. I read the book on my way to the United States when we've been there in February for the launching. I couldn't read the personal parts because it's really too painful. And the feeling is that I'm listening to myself being recorded. But the book itself is a masterpiece. I mean, I couldn't let it off my hand. It's amazing. It's so many layers. It's so many angles. It's so many stories. It's so many different perspectives that it's just fascinating book. I recommend for everyone.
Arthur is asking, I met your brother-in-law, Miko Peled, in California. What do you think of his message? Maybe you want to tell us his message.
As I said earlier, we say in Arabic, "Id wahade ma bitzakef." You cannot make peace with yourself. You need to have partners.
Okay. Going back to something personal, what would Smadar be doing today if she was with us?
I don't know. She was an excellent student. Maybe she was a doctor. Maybe she would do anything else. I have the feeling all the time that Smadar is standing behind my back, pushing me forward, telling me, Father, go on. This is the purpose. This is the meaning of a senseless loss. I cannot tell you what Smadar would have think. All I can tell you that this is one wound that never heals. It's 59 seconds out of every minute she's there. We don't need Memorial Days to remember her. We remember her all the time, and it's still painful.
Okay, remember there was this question that you asked to leave to the end.
Yeah, well, this is really the end. In 5 minutes, I will be jumping to England to speak to a synagogue in London. So you will excuse me. It's an ongoing work.
Remember the question?
Yeah, sure I do. How can I forget? This is really the most important questions. The question is, what can we do? What will be the message that we will take out of this meeting? What will we dream about tonight? What will be the action that we will take tomorrow morning? And I usually say to all the groups that I'm speaking to, especially for the groups from abroad. I told you that I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor. My late father was an Auschwitz graduate. And 75 years ago, while they took my grandparents to the ovens back in Europe, the free and civilized world stood aside, never lifting one finger. And today, so many years later, while these two crazy of ours, Israelis and Palestinians, are massacring each other without any mercy, while this genocide is taking place in Syria, while Turks are killing Kurds with American support in Iraq, while people are drowning in the Mediterranean like flies and atrocities wherever you look, and the free and civilized world is still standing aside, doing nothing, which is also a crime. You know, standing aside while a crime is being committed is crime. Now, we don't ask people to import our conflict to their society. You have really enough problems of your own. We don't need you to be pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. This will not help us. we demand of you to be pro-peace and to be against injustice and against this ongoing situation in which one people is dominating the other. This is the essence of the problem. It can be changed. It must be changed. And I will finish with the message of a Jew. And as I said, I am a Jew with the utmost respect to my people, to my history, to my tradition. And I will tell you that ruling and oppressing and humiliating and occupying millions and millions of people for so many years without any democratic right is not Jewish, period. No two ways about it. And being against it is not anti-Semitism. And if you get into an argument, you can quote me. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Rami, thank you. Thank you so much for this inspiring message coming from an inspiring person.
For your incredible host. Thank you, Heli. And thank Combatants for Peace being amazing a group as they are.
Yeah, thanks, Heli, for helping us. And we are calling everybody for action, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good Independence Day.